Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter podcast on anxiety this week, part two for the 20th of August. We are sailing into the fall. So let's start. Today, we're going to talk about severe anxiety. I'm going to introduce you to what the definition is of severe anxiety because last week I did ask you to rate your range. All right. Now, just know ahead of time that if you live with anxiety, nobody is going to try to convince you, all right, into believing that severe anxiety is anything other than very, very much different from mild anxiety. All right. And when anxiety builds into a higher range, all right, and we're looking at somewhere between 75 to 100% intensity here, it is honestly severely difficult to manage. All right, so there's no failure on your part, there's no inadequacy on your part. You are in the middle of that hormonal bath that is turned up to deep fry. All right, so just know it's not just about you, it's also about what your body is trying to tell you in the hormonal bath it's sending to you. All right. So, not to fear, the next episode, next week, we'll look at what the characteristics are of severe anxiety. All right. And why it makes them uh, actually much more difficult even to tolerate, forget manage. Okay. So, truth is, we experience more symptoms with severe anxiety, all right, and with greater intensity and persistence. I want to really encourage everybody here today, right, to take notes. Braden says he's going to try really hard to get the podcasts up faster. Um, Go back and look at that material because you do not want to habituate strategies and responses that simply keep you in that stew of hormonal bath that severe anxiety creates, right? Because you will have a much harder time shaking it, right? Now, with severe anxiety, the feelings are disproportionate, right? And all that means is that they are severely excessive to what is actually happening generally in what could be an everyday situation. But that everyday situation is such that it triggers that in you, right? So, in some ways, it's actually know this ahead of time. Make it a mantra when it starts to arrive to say to yourself, this, my response is, and the anxiety, it is magnifying the need for fear, right? That the truth is, I can't feel it or see it right now, but the truth is, this is 99% probability not as fearful a situation, as bad, as dire a situation as I am experiencing it. All right. And the reason I'd like you to kind of put that mantra in there that you have a place to go to quickly when you feel it starting to rise is because our ability, like our honest ability to think logically, rationally, becomes a whole lot harder. And we tend then to focus on the worst possible outcome. Has anybody had that experience? When you focus on the worst case scenario, what you're actually doing though, and you are increasing the intensity and the toxicity of that hormonal bath flowing around in your body because it's creating We anticipate catastrophic results. And when you're far enough down that continuum, it is extremely difficult, if possible at all, in that time frame to turn yourself around. What you have to do, when you're starting, anybody here, now people in Miami, maybe not, but, and certainly people in Hawaii, not. But has anybody here ever had the experience of starting to slip on ice? And as you're going down, the worst thing you can do is try to do this. All right. You need to get your head in gear right away, and you need to counterbalance, especially if you're driving a car. Your first response is to go wah, wah, wah on the brake, which is only going to put you into what it does in life anyway with severe anxiety, a severe tailspin. Slow, small pumps, deep breaths to keep yourself from a panic response and a panic reaction. All right. So when we get it wrong, when we let go and we are anticipating catastrophic results, what are we doing? Okay. Almost involuntarily, we are focusing on the most and are most aware of feelings, only feelings of danger. Now we're on high alert for all the things that could go wrong, are going wrong. And remember, we are magnifying them because of the hormonal bath we are experiencing inside. All right. And it's about danger, it's about threat. And that gets added to our personal helplessness. Because when we feel that level of out of control or anywhere on that continuum, you do not feel competent and capable. You have a lot of insecurity. You have a lot of fear, and you have a lot of helplessness. All right. You are not helpless. If this is happening to you, you have the ability. You don't have the strategies yet, maybe. You certainly haven't used those strategies to the point where they're actual skills, right? But you are not helpless, okay? Now, if it gets ahead of you, know this, there's no fault or inadequacy. The likelihood that when you're far enough down that path, that you're going to be able to shake those feelings and perceptions in the moment, I don't think that's realistic, all right? Because those feelings and insecurities are pretty firmly secured to intense feelings and beliefs that what you're seeing, feeling, thinking is legit. All right. And you're trying to legitimize something that is intolerable. That's one of the reasons you've going back and forth between helplessness and panic, is because you know that you right now are in a position you don't have a firm handle on this. All right. So we seek, according to what threatens us most, we seek solutions, right? So that we can escape. Escape means you're already in the middle of it. So let's just put a notation to ourselves. We want to be much further upstream by the time we're feeling this, the time we're thinking this. All right. But we want reasonable, helpful strategies that can become skills when we practice them often enough, that are worth the effort. All right, so we don't want to get some half-baked magazine that says, 10 solutions to, and then it lists a whole lot of things that aren't even within your bailiwick. all right, of being able to pull into your life and do. All right. So we also intensely in severe anxiety focus on the what ifs. They haven't even happened yet. We're already, this is natural to intense anxiety, severe anxiety, all right? We start to focus on the what ifs. Now we're looking at the future. We're not handling the present all that well right now. And now we're trying to avoid it in the future, okay? What I want to do next with us here in this anxiety podcast is to change that strategy and start to focus on very fundamental, very basic, very doable cognitive behavioral. All that means is your mind is working with your body. It's a more integrated, all right, response. Ways of approaching anxiety. Now, I have to make really clear in a podcast, this is not counseling. This is a form of coaching. This is a form of passing on expert information from my clinical experience, but also from the work of others who are acknowledged experts in the field. This is not counseling, all right? It's simply meant to give you a shopping list of ways to identify and process that will enable you to better manage and live with anxiety, which remember last week we said it's a fallacy that we're going, if we are predisposed at all right, it's a fallacy that we're going to eliminate it. But we are going to learn to manage it. We are going to learn to catch it way, way downstream so that we can much more successfully get it under control as it's starting to creep. Okay? Now, doing that, having sort of like a lighthouse attitude to monitoring for how am I doing? How am I doing? Where am I now? What level would it be right now? All right. Anxiety. Just a constant kind of scrutiny. Not a lot of attention. Is it anywhere on the horizon? Sometimes makes it possible to head it off at the pass. That's the benefit in the moment you start to feel it, like wherever, and right now, stop. If you're on this podcast, it's because you have or you are experiencing anxiety. Where does it register first? It's different for different people. Some people right in their throat. Okay. Some people in their chest, some people in their diaphragm, some people in their gut, some people in their bowels, some people in their back, in their head. Where does it register first for you? That first little, hey, I'm here. Where? Write it down. Okay. Each person, there's nothing better or worse about anybody. Each person starts at a different point. All right. Which means each of you probably have a slightly different point at which you can start to reclaim and maintain your mental health as it reflects anxiety. If you've habituated and you've been susceptible and you've been not that successful at managing it, you may be further down. All right. It may be more work for you to bring it upstream. Okay. So anxiety starts with experience, pre-experience sometimes, of all kinds of previous life adversities. All right. Going as far back as childhood. our family history. Now, there's a little bit of a saying in mental health professionals, and that isn't did you have a dysfunctional family? All right. The question more rationally is, in what way was your family dysfunctional? Because nobody's perfect. Okay. Parents didn't get it right, and their parents didn't get it right. So, in what ways, if there were any childhood experiences, family history, you are not doomed. This is not part of your identity. And also, some people are more biologically predisposed to anxiety, right? And there can be other factors as well. So it's an absolute truism that this is not a one size fits all. So if anybody out here, when we're talking about strategies, has tried it and it just didn't work, or it didn't work well enough, there are two options. You're not using it effectively, a good strategy effectively, okay? Or you are more predisposed to anxiety and you need something that is slightly higher ratcheted, all right? It's okay. We'll find something. So, some people also may have to work a lot harder at maintaining their mental health, all right? Because of themselves or because they coexist with others that challenge their mental health. But know this is absolutely true no matter which of those two camps you belong in. Everyone can improve their emotional health. Everyone. No matter how good it is already, no matter how not good it is already. All right? The question is, are you ready to take the next step? So right now, I'm going to ask you to take a minute and I'm going to ask you, I got a hair in my eyes, sorry. Okay. That's what happens when you do your hair and it's not curly and out of your face. There's a downside. Right now, Claude is playing a tiny little violin for me. Thank you for the sympathy vote. Right now, I want you, if you can, please, to write down 3 reasons, no matter where you are on that continuum, 3 reasons, 3 benefits, something you're going to give yourself something that is more favorable than it is right now by being ready and willing to take the next step. I'll give you a second. 3 reasons that are personal to you, what it would mean in the way of an improvement or a security or it's good enough to make the effort, a good enough reason to make the effort. Because I'm hoping that this podcast and the next 2 are going to offer you resources that are available. You don't have to buy them, sell them. You don't have to do anything. You just have to learn them, and then you have to make them important enough to practice them. It's sort of like dance steps. All right. And then you're going to have a much better little toolkit. So we're going to use CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. All right. And why are we going to do that? They're not the be all and end all. All right. But they are really good if you are someone who has the headspace that you're not so disabled by mental health issues. that you can actually reflect, all right? And you can speak to yourself in a way that gives you a rational behavioral res- option. So it's the thinking, cognitive drives the action, behavioral techniques. Okay. They have been really, really well assessed, CBT, all right, as worth the effort. And they are. They really are. So let's start with keeping our expectations realistic. Okay. We all have different starting points for anxiety and worry. All right. And those starting points and worry affect how, affect for each of us differently how much we can lower our anxiety as a first step. All right. An example of that would be that it's true that you may feel something more sensitively than somebody else. All right. And that's also true about anxiety symptoms. Now, you can worsen that, right, by habituating an ineffective strategy. So just because you feel, you experience things highly sensitively doesn't necessarily mean you're predisposed to that. It may mean you've overused strategies or not used strategies. And basically, every time the pipe burst a little bit or leaked a little bit, it caused a flood. All right. Because you didn't have the right tools and you didn't know the right strategies to use those tools to stop it when it was just dribbles. Okay. If, however, you are highly, you may be on medication for it, that you are, or you believe that you are highly reactive to anxious feelings, even with a good effort, all right, you may not get your anxiety down to the same level as somebody who is less sensitive as quickly. But whatever you reclaim and you learn how to hold, and that becomes your new normal, even a little better gradually, I believe, from my experience, and I've done nothing but this for 24 years, people, all right, with hoarding, and more than I want to say and admit, longer than that, with working with people who were in bad situations. Okay. You get yourself to a certain point, that's your new normal. Catch your breath, take a rest, try to improve it again. Learn to hold it there. That just became your new normal. I believe that the vast majority of people gradually, with a static period in between work periods, all right, they can get themselves to a new normal. They can reinforce that. They can hold it. That can become their new normal. That can also become the starting point for the next round. You catch your breath, enjoy life a little, then you take on the next round of moving it down the line a bit, right? So now I want everybody to stop for a second and I want them to ask themselves, will you actually make the time for yourself to do these strategies, to use these, to reflect, so that you're not going overboard with anxiety when you're thinking, what did she say? All right. Okay. When you're in the water, that's too late to be looking for the life raft. You need to have the life raft with you and you need to practice inflating it. All right. So will you make the time? Where will that time come from? Will you go back to your calendar now? Remember the unscheduled calendar? And will you cross off regular little bits of time to practice? And you can practice by reflection. You don't need to be in an anxious situation to practice. You can meditate, you can visualize, you can get yourself in a somewhat like situation, you can relive a past situation, all right? And you can start to apply these new strategies we're going to be talking about. If you ever start questioning whether you have the time to do CBT, or if there's anybody out there who has convinced themselves no time, all right, I want you to stop for a second and I want to ask you, how much time do you lose by being in an anxious state? How much time do you lose by recovering from an anxious state? If you could reduce or really make very rare disruption when anxiety starts to percolate, all of that time would be yours. Have you ever sat down and figured out how much time each day, now, just for a second now, okay, how much time and on what kind of a regular basis do you spend or get taken away from you worrying? Worrying about what is a problem, worrying about what could be a problem, worrying about what has been a problem and whether it will come back. Does anybody experience the fatigue? Do you wonder why you're dragging yourself? Why you've got no energy? Because you're walking around with a slow leak. All right. If this was your car, you'd have the tires repaired, wouldn't you? You wouldn't expect that car to run on tires where the air pressure is so low. You're going thump, 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 and it isn't Ottawa potholes. That's an inside joke, people. Ottawa have the worst roads known to man, all right? I'm sure. Yeah, we are renowned for our potholes. All right. So, anybody here ever not been able to sleep because of worry or anxiety? Anybody ever habituate insomnia? It's just the progression of ownership that anxiety takes from you. The anxiety now owns you because it's like a really badly behaved person who's out of control and nobody's calling them on it. How about just how much of your day, how much of your energy, your focus, what you would like to have happen is affected by being stressed? Now, I shared with the group a reason for me recently to have a new experience with stress. All right, I won't repeat it here, but I have to work at it. No, just because you have stress doesn't mean that it's not legit. The question is, how much of your life are you going to give to it? And not use the strategies that will reduce it to manageable, livable, not disruptive. All right, everybody, myself included, has to do this. And my strategies now are different from the strategies before because the incidence of what is causing the stress is different and calls for something different. You know, all the people here who have said, I find it so hard to focus. Do you think any part of it is either the after effects, just the weariness of even low level anxiety, where you just think there's no point. I can't make any difference. I can't turn it around. Some things you can't change. All right. Those are reality. But most people you can. You can change. All right. All right. So what would it be like instead of living with low level manageable if you were able to identify the anxieties, the subject matter that causes anxieties, whatever is attached, and actually avoid it? What would that be like? Is it worth the effort? Is it worth the effort to you? Okay. So when you look at all of that, now compare it to how much time you'll need to work with, for instance, a workbook. And I think I have, by the end, next week, I've got them over on the other desk and I can't get to them. I will bring the workbooks. Now, I'm not trying to flog somebody's workbook, all right? But if you are somebody who really likes to work at something in a structured way, in that time, how much time you're going to allocate regularly, you might as well be using a good workbook. All right. Okay. Would the investment be worth it? Ask yourself that right now. Are you somebody who would benefit from a structured workbook? All right. Now, I know that Kim has just put a workbook in the chat. However, I can't say what that workbook has in it. All right. So, as far as tools, if we could resist offering tools, because when it's piggybacked on this podcast, others will believe that that is something that I am supporting. And I can't comment on the tools and resources that other people use. So it would be better than not. Okay. All right. Okay, Kim. I just didn't recognize the name when you put it in there, and I thought, oh wow, I know nothing about that. Okay. All right. Thank you. My little assistant down here. All right. So um is it a worthy investment? Start low and slow and work up. What about starting with that 15 minutes a day? And maybe all you do for a little bit is you read the material, all right? And you reread the material until you really have it integrated. And then you start to reflect, all right? Okay. If you're very sensitive to anxiety symptoms, it's important not to overwhelm yourself. If you're somebody who is super, super anxious to get beyond the anxiety that you're experiencing, be patient with yourself. Slow and steady wins the race. All right, slow and steady wins the race because it requires reflection. When you take the time to reflect, you're actually kind of imprinting it more successfully in your brain, and you're applying it to something that is meaningful for you. So the next time anything that is even remotely akin to that is coming up, the high probability there will be an association. All right, you'll associate the two things and you'll be able to apply it to more than what you first thought it was simply about. All right. Don't overwhelm yourself and don't try to do too much. Slow, steady, regular wins the race. Now, sometimes when you're filling out in the workbooks, you're filling out answers that might start to generate a little bit of anxiety. Sit with it. Catch it right away and sit with it. I don't care how many more questions are in that section, you sit with it. All right, you bring it back under control and you move on from there gradually. Some of the workbooks are going to mimic something called exposure therapy. Exposure therapy is a very successful strategy. But until you really know yourself and you have good, sound strategies to hold the line when you start to feel anxious or worry about something, better not to go ahead. Okay, better to nail that point right there so that you are 100% safe. What we don't want to find is that people rush at it and actually they're putting themselves into reliving trauma. All right. Slow and steady wins the race by doing that little bit every day. So if you get a workbook, the other thing I'm going to bring next week too is something really simple. I have brought it to one or two other podcasts. It's the bubbles. Okay. It's the bubbles. It's a little diagram and I'm going to walk you through it. That anybody can do. It is transferable 100% to practically every situation in life. All right. And it requires very little of you. Okay. Now, how many people this week, because we've been talking about anxiety, when they started to feel even worry or anxiousness, just even like not anxiety, but just a little hyper, stopped and asked themselves, what are my thoughts right now? I'm feeling something that's uncomfortable. What was I just thinking about? And what was I saying to myself about it? Did anybody do that? I'd like to see some hands up if they did. Okay. I'm gonna just move this down so I can see. I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people across. Okay, good. All right. What did you do with it? What did you do with it when you thought, what was I just thinking about? Why? You can put it in you can put it in the chat, and I will open the chat. Come on, chat, open up. Okay. Yeah, so somebody here, I think it was Liz, watch if you have a habit or you have formed a habit of going into high alert and getting immobilized. You don't know what to do. All right. Watch that. I really want you to back way upstream on that. Okay. Did we see any here? Hold on, people. Holy smoke, that is one URL, Kim. Really? Okay. Okay. I talked to myself and talked myself out of the anxiety. Okay, good. So, how many people did just even a moment of reflection to kind of catch what are the kind of thoughts? So, when you did that throughout the rest of the week, did you see that there was a pattern or a type of thing or a type of experience, something you needed to do or something you didn't want to do that was there any commonality to what the thinking was? Anybody? Thumbs up if there was? If you started to notice a pattern? Okay. Okay. So if people are comfortable, they can send me a direct message. All right. Make it a direct message though, about what was the common theme or what were repetitive themes. Um, in case there are different types of strategies for different types of worries. All right. Okay. So when you can catch your thoughts or even be aware of them, take a moment to focus on them. Just what is the thought that's worrying or the event? What are you thinking about it? Particularly, what are you thinking that is making you feel anxious? A good thing to do is to externalize the message. Take a moment and write down the thoughts. Okay? Write down the thoughts. And then, oh, maybe a few minutes later, half an hour later on in the day, whenever, go back to what you've written down and see whether you had exaggerated the threat. What you were experiencing felt much bigger and out of proportion. Was there any so fearful that even though it didn't happen, there were like catastrophic anticipation? We can form a tendency in doing that. Or, you know what, the other thing we can do that is very anxiety producing, and that is exactly the opposite. There's a possibility, and we talk ourselves out of it because nothing good can come of that. And that's the fear of even starting, the fear of even trying to normalize, to move the bar forward a bit, claim that space. How many people do that, talk themselves out of hopeful or preferable? Okay. George says he does it. All right. Maybe we need to have one or two podcasts on that. Okay. Because that's a real loss. It means the idea has come to you. If an idea has come to you, the possibility is there. You might have to work for me. Think about the gorilla trekking. Okay. When I was trying to convince you people about how to face challenges, and I was thinking, and that my thought was, you know, I've got to be able to do more than talk. I've got to show these people that we are really vulnerable and but we are also really very capable. We can make ourselves capable. It's work. It took me 6 months to get in shape to be able to walk that distance. All right. And I should have done a little more research, however, because when I got there, I found that Uganda was actually mountainous. All right. So my being able to walk 15 kilometers with no problem, that was okay. Now what? All right. All right. Sometimes life has fun with you. But you know what? I'm not special. I did it. I did it 3 times just to prove to myself 2 wasn't an accident. Okay? I'm very normal most of the time. I'm very normal. And you know what? You are too. And we can do more. We can certainly reclaim our mental health. It's not going to come to us. We are going to have to go to it and we are going to have to do the work. But we're going to feel a whole lot better than we do right now. All right? So keep your eyes out for exaggerated thinking, the threat being feeling even exaggerated, bigger than it is. Be really on the lookout for catastrophic thinking, the worst case scenario, like that could happen. And I need to be ready for the catastrophic event. Probably not. All right. Then back up and start looking for the errors we make when we distort something. We just change it. We either change it negatively or we change it positively, and it's not that either. All right. When we continue to bump our head against things that we haven't made the effort to become a skill, all right, you don't have to be the best at it. You just have to be good enough. We convince ourselves in some way, to some degree, that we're helpless or that we can't stand the anxiety. When the anxiety arrives, you're along for the ride. Okay, the anxiety decides that bath. Your thoughts hit a trigger. The trigger hits this hormonal bath that goes through you, and you are like a little bobbin on the water at that point until that wears down. All right, avoid it. You can avoid it. That's all I'm saying. And if you happen to be hypersensitive for neurological reasons, perhaps, maybe you can't avoid it, but you can sure lessen it. You can lessen the cost. So, has anybody here, when they've started to feel it, started to think about escape or relying on a false sense of safety? Anybody? And what would that false sense of safety be? Well, I'll give you one thing. Avoiding it. Things are going to come into our life that are either what we don't want, or they are the facsimile of what we don't want, or they are highly similar. That's just life. Have you become more aware in this last week of your anxious thinking? And have you started to learn more about it? Can you step out of it? This week, I want you to learn to give yourself the time to step out of the anxiety. Just put it on pause and look at it and learn more about it. Observe it. Next week, we'll start on how to start to correct it. 2 hints. When you're doing that, be patient. Be patient with yourself and don't talk yourself out of it and don't run away from it. Face down the boogeyman. When anxiety is building, know that an anxious mind takes over our instinct when we let it. And in one form or another, all we've got is to run from it. Running from it is not the solution. It's entirely understandable, given how we feel. But you know what? You know what the best way out of something is? All together now. Say it. Through it. The best way out is through it. Don't leave the situation physically, unless the house is on fire. All right. Don't leave the situation and don't leave it in your mind. And don't give up. Don't give in. Break time into very, very, very small time frames. Right now, thinking about it. Focus on it. What is the next doable goal? Never mind the solution. The solution is made up of a series of tiny next step goals. That's all. That's what the best solution is made up of. The next very tiny next step goal. And once you reach it, you've validated yourself. You've increased your confidence. You're not any happier, but you've increased your confidence a bit. You can tell yourself something different now. Okay, I'm not managing the whole problem, but I got this one. Okay. And I'll stay a few more minutes here at this point that I have. And then I'm going after the next little tiny chunk. And I'll do that and I won't stop until I do it. Don't give up. And every time you do a tiny little chunk in a row, celebrate the success of it. All right? That is much better than allowing yourself to be stymied. And it helps you develop a greater range of problem-solving skills and the confidence to do it and the right to recognize your own achievements. And they don't have to be big ones. I've said this before. Most problems, even the worst ones, are handled by a series of 10% solutions. And you have the right to celebrate and reward yourself, acknowledge yourself, validate yourself for that 10%. Now, progress doesn't always come in a straight line moving forward. Okay? It just doesn't. Expect you are going to have setbacks. I have setbacks. You're going to have disappointments. I have disappointments. Everybody does. But instead of giving up, stop. Take a really close look. So if you're having difficulty making decisions about what stays and what goes, stop. Reflect on what's the problem here? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Am I exaggerating the importance or the loss I would feel? What is it really about? How would I live without these things? And if I can't live without these things, how much have they been part of my everyday life? Like fundamental to the success of most days of my life. That's how you know you might be enhancing the importance. Not in all cases, but it's a good rule of thumb. And when it doesn't go well, treat that like a problem. Ask yourself, what approach did I take here? What changes did I want? What changes do I see? What changes don't I see? Did I really believe I could? Did I really believe I could? And what is missing? What do I need? Where is it? How do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference to make the next tiny 10% breakthrough? What do I need? Where is it? And how do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference to make the next 10% breakthrough? And if anxiety is part of it, don't fight it. Don't fight it. Okay? Just let it flow. It's not going to last forever. And you can reflect on that and learn a lot about lessening the next time. Okay, everyone, your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to log every day, whatever part of the day is good for you. All right. What experiences with worry or anxiety? How strong was the anxiety that you felt? What was it about? What were your thoughts on it? What was the outcome? And is the outcome in any way attached to the thoughts you had about it? I hope everyone has a really, really great week, and I will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Can you do it? Yes, you can. Yes, you can.